Hi, I'm going to talk to you about horror. The first definition that comes up when you Google the horror definition is a genre of speculative fiction which is intended to frighten, scare, or disgust, which I think is perfectly fair. For me, the first thing that comes to mind, the platonic ideal if you will, when horror comes up are slashers. These are films that involve a killer murdering a group of people, your Nightmare on Elm Street, your Screams, and arguably things like Saw. It's pulpy, cheesy, cheap, unthinking violence, and I don't like it. Not because of any of those things. Pulpy, cheesy, and cheap describe most of my breakfast over lockdown. There's just something about them that doesn't really grab me. I think it's the lack of depth. It makes me sound super pretentious, but it all just kind of washes together and doesn't really have enough to keep me hooked. And because of the fact that horror has always kind of been linked in my mind to a type of film I don't particularly like, for a long time, I kind of wrote off horror as a genre I wasn't interested in. But all this changed when I saw a film called The Void, a 2016 supernatural horror film directed by Stephen Kotansky and Jeremy Gillespie, I guess. It's about a group of people who become trapped in a hospital by a group of cultists. They soon discover that there is something else in the hospital with them. I won't say any more, and I'll try not to use any footage in the edit that gives anything away, but it's kind of inevitable that you'll see something a little bit spoilery. I first watched The Void with my family. My brother brought down the DVD and said it was a horror film. Being the naive 16-year-old I wasn't super into it, but we put it on anyway. And as soon as the cultists surround the hospital, I fell in love with it. The film has this eldritch, terrifying mystery, some great and disturbing creature effects and weird magic shit. I'm being vague on purpose for your benefit, please watch this film, it's fantastic. There was something about the mystery of this film, these tantalising little bits that they dropped that totally dragged me in, and I think that for me is what I love about horror. There's always this question about why we watch horror, why do we seek out that which makes us scared? I used to think that for some people it was about seeking out thrills. You become immersed and through your sense of empathy you feel scared for the main characters. For others it's a strange sort of schadenfreude. We like to see violence and horrible things happening to other people, it intrigues us. I mean, why else is rubbernecking a thing? We're morbidly curious, and so horror pulls on that strange need to see the horrible. For some though, and I thought I was included amongst this group, it's the mystery. What brings the ghost here? Where does the evil originate? Why is this happening to these people? Why now? Why in this way? I found myself asking these kind of questions about The Void. It plays into the lore nerd side of me. I love things like Star Wars and Destiny. They have extended lore and mythology, and I love that. So I think that curiosity is what drew me into The Void, a certain horrified awe. The next film I'm going to talk about is actually the one I saw third out of the three films, but it relates more to what I was just talking about. That film is Annihilation. Annihilation is a 2018 science fiction horror film written and directed by Alex Garland, based on the 2014 novel of the same name. I love this film so much. To list just a few reasons, the visuals are so unique and like nothing I've seen before, filled with fascinating concepts and ideas. The sound design, personal passion of mine, and hopefully my career at some point, is viscerally exciting. It brings something out of me that I can't fully explain. I'm not just talking about scores, like most people are when they talk about sound design, which is amazing, don't get me wrong, but the sound effects are perfect and brilliant. There's one particular sound, which if you've seen the film, you'll know from the clip I'm throwing up now. It's something I can only dream of creating myself, and genuinely makes me excited to do sound design. The story is a typical squad gets picked off one by one, but it does it with such a wonderful style it's easy to forget it's something you've seen before. What was I talking about again? Right, horror. The film is horrifying, in such an existential way. The main villain isn't some psycho killer or big beast, even though it does feature one. It's this seemingly insurmountable force of nature that can just change you, that we don't fully understand. The film is so rich with mystery and questions that you don't ever really get an answer to. It's like that awe I got from The Void but turned up to an 11. It's easily my favourite film, and considering that I didn't initially like horror, that's a big jump. The third film I'll mention, but the second one I saw out of the three, is Get Out. I won't talk for ages about this film. Those far more learned and knowledgeable about film have made infinitely more eloquent videos and essays on this film, but it's important to mention because it's not particularly supernatural really. It works on two levels. If you separate it from the metaphor, which is up for debate if you can or even should do that, it works as a horror film so well. You can watch it multiple times and have a different experience as you notice new things that foreshadow later events, and it's tense and nerve-wracking and amazing. And once you add on a metaphor of white liberals and their attitudes towards African Americans, it's mind-blowingly brilliant. My love of this film kind of throws a wrench in the works to my theory on why we love horror. I think that instead of there being those three groups of reasons why people like horror, I think, like most things, it's a spectrum. You can be anywhere on the scale, really. Get Out is excellent because it's tense and well done. You feel for the main character and are rooting for him to get out. It's also saying something, which is important. It's making a point, and what it doesn't do in amazing, weird, tantalising mystery, it makes up for in purpose. Which I suppose isn't specific to horror, so it doesn't really affect the scale, but it's still important as to what can make a good horror film for me. I believe I'm here on the scale, but this is just something I've sort of come up with on the spot. I'm sure it could be revised and is mostly based on supposition, but for me it works as a way to illustrate what I love about horror. Maybe I'm just a picky watcher. I must be impressed and wowed by spectacle and mystery, and I can't just sit back and enjoy a good old-fashioned slasher. But I put it to you, the imaginary person who just made that argument, if you must switch off to enjoy a film, if you must not think about a film to enjoy it, can you really call it good? Or is it a film that makes you think, that introduces new concepts and ideas that you hadn't considered, a film that makes you speculate and wonder, a film that instills fear and awe in you? Is that not a good film? Something to think about, I guess. I love these films for those reasons, and I think that horror has the potential to do these things, much like other genres do, but they all do it in their own way. And horror does it in its unique way, which is why I now love the horror genre. I just need to find the right films and not write it off as cheesy and full of cheap thrills. There we go. Let me know what you think. I'll be interested to hear people's thoughts. I feel like I needed to say this, so thanks for hearing me out. It's a little bit rambly. Check out my podcast. It's sort of horror-y, sort of sci-fi-y, sort of mystery-y. I think it's cool. Bye.